Welcome to Video Creator. We invite you to join us as we uncover the chilling secrets of the Appalachian Mountains. These ancient mountains hold stories that are older than time itself, hiding secrets that are best left completely undisturbed forever. The locals warn travelers not to stray from the path, for the woods are watching with 1,000 unseen eyes. My brother Daniel never listened to the old warnings, seeking solitude in a place where silence is never truly silent. He bought a secluded cabin deep in the heart of the wilderness, hoping to find peace away from the city. At first, everything seemed perfect, a quiet sanctuary where he could work and live without the noise of modern society. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the atmosphere shifted, and the friendly woods transformed into something much darker. The first few nights were difficult, with the settling sounds of the old house mimicking footsteps in the empty hallways. He began waking up at exactly 3 in the morning, pulled from his sleep by a feeling of intense dread. It was not just a nightmare, but a physical sensation that someone or something was standing right beside his bed. He would walk the house with a flashlight, checking every lock and window, trying to find the source of fear. Morning always brought relief, washing away the terrors of the night with the pale light of a gray dawn. One morning, he stepped out to find a grim gift waiting for him, shattering the illusion of his safety. A rabbit lay broken on the wood, torn apart with a savagery that did not belong to any natural predator. He scanned the tree line, feeling the weight of invisible eyes boring into him from the safety of the shadows. He called me that afternoon, his voice trembling as he tried to rationalize the strange events happening around his home. I decided to drive up for the weekend, thinking he just needed some company to settle his overactive imagination. When I arrived, he looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of many sleepless, terrified nights. He told me about the whispers he heard in the wind and the scratching sounds that plagued the thin walls. He took me to a large oak tree near the house, showing me deep gouges carved into the rough bark. The marks were too high for a bear and too deep for a mountain lion, defying all logical explanation. A cold wind swept through the clearing, carrying a scent that was musky and ancient, like wet fur and decay. We tried to enjoy our dinner, but the silence of the house felt heavy, pressing down on our chests. Daniel kept glancing at the window, expecting to see a face pressed against the glass, watching us eat. I suggested we go hunting the next morning to clear our heads and assert some dominance over the land. We set out at dawn, the mist clinging to the ground like a ghostly shroud, obscuring the path ahead. The woods were strangely quiet, lacking the usual sounds of birds and insects that should greet the rising sun. We found tracks in the mud near the creek, prints that looked disturbingly like a human hand with claws. I tried to dismiss it as a deformed bear track, but deep down, I knew it was something else entirely. We pushed deeper into the wilderness, driven by a foolish curiosity that would soon lead us into a nightmare. We followed the creek for miles, moving further away from the safety of the cabin and into unknown territory. Suddenly, Daniel froze and signaled for silence, his eyes wide as he strained to hear something over the wind. We crouched behind a rock, waiting for movement, hearts pounding against our ribs like trapped birds in a cage. A loud snap echoed through the valley, sounding like a heavy bone breaking rather than a dry tree branch. Then silence returned, absolute and suffocating, as if the forest itself was holding its breath in anticipation. Daniel leaned close and whispered, asking if I could smell the rot that was suddenly drifting on the breeze. It hit us like a physical blow, the smell of old meat and wet dog, thick enough to taste. We realized then how small and vulnerable we were, isolated in a vast ocean of trees and shadows. We decided to turn back, the thrill of the hunt replaced by a primal urge to flee to safety. As we walked, the sensation of being stalked grew stronger, a prickling heat on the back of our necks. Daniel stumbled and fell, the noise of his rifle hitting the rocks echoing loudly like a dinner bell. I hauled him to his feet, and we scanned the perimeter, weapons raised, adrenaline flooding our systems instantly. I saw a shadow detach itself from the darkness, moving with a fluid speed that was impossible for a man. I blinked, trying to clear my vision, hoping it was just a trick of the light and fear. We picked up our pace into a jog, not running, but moving with a desperate urgency to escape. The sky above began to darken, heavy clouds rolling in to choke out the remaining light of the day. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a low growl that seemed to answer the unease in our own hearts. When the cabin finally came into view, it looked like a fortress, a beacon of safety in the wilderness. We burst through the door and locked it behind us, leaning against the wood, gasping for air. Daniel immediately went to the windows, drawing the curtains tight to shut out the prying eyes of the forest. Rain began to fall, tapping against the glass like impatient fingers asking to be let inside the warmth. We sat by the fire, letting the heat seep into our bones, but the cold fear remained inside us. I tried to tell him we were safe, that it was just a bear, but my voice lacked conviction. The wind picked up, howling around the corners of the cabin, sounding like a chorus of mournful screams. The lights flickered and buzzed, the storm outside threatening to sever our only connection to the modern world. Daniel started talking about the local legends, stories of creatures that were once human but became something else. He spoke of the wampus cat, a twisted being with the body of a cat and the face of a woman. I laughed it off as a campfire story, a myth designed to keep children from wandering too far. Suddenly, a massive thud shook the entire cabin, as if a battering ram had struck the side wall. We sprang to our feet, weapons in hand, training our sights on the wooden locks that separated us from outside. Then came the scratching, loud and rhythmic, tearing at the wood with a strength that terrified us both. Daniel screamed that it had found us, his composure shattering completely under the assault of the unknown beast. The power died instantly, plunging us into a darkness broken only by the dying embers of the fire. I fumbled for my flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom, revealing the terror etched on my brother's face. Heavy footsteps pounded on the roof above us, pacing back and forth with a deliberate, taunting rhythm. Dust rained down on us, marking the path of the creature as it circled looking for a way in. Daniel retreated into the corner, clutching a hunting knife, muttering prayers that went unanswered in the dark. The sound of shattering glass from the back bedroom froze our blood, signaling that the barrier was breached. I told Daniel to stay put and moved towards the hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs like a hammer. The hallway seemed to stretch on forever, a tunnel of darkness leading to the source of the intrusion. The bedroom door was open, wind and rain lashing inside, carrying that same foul stench of decay. I swept the light across the room, seeing the broken window but finding no sign of the creature inside. A low growl vibrated through the floorboards behind me, a sound that was too deep for any human throat. I spun around, weapon ready, but the hallway was empty, the shadows playing tricks on my heightened senses. Then I heard Daniel scream, a sound of pure terror that cut through the storm and stopped my heart. I sprinted back to the living room, ignoring the danger, driven only by the need to save my brother. The living room was empty, furniture overturned, and the heavy door to the basement stood ominously wide open. I stood at the top of the stairs, staring down into the abyss, the darkness below seemingly thick and solid. I heard a soft whimpering coming from the depths, the sound of a broken man crying in the dark. I descended slowly, every creak of the stairs sounding like a gunshot in the oppressive silence of the house. The air grew colder with every step, heavy with the smell of damp earth and that sickening musk. My light swept over piles of discarded boxes and old furniture, casting long, distorted shadows against the stone walls. I found Daniel huddled in the far corner, rocking back and forth, muttering gibberish to himself in a panic. I rushed to his side and grabbed his shoulders, trying to snap him out of his catatonic state. He looked up at me with eyes void of sanity, slowly raising a trembling hand to point behind me. I turned slowly, dread coiling in my stomach, the beam of my light slicing through the heavy darkness. Two glowing yellow orbs floated in the shadows, burning with a malevolent intelligence that froze me in place. Then I saw it. A face that was a mockery of humanity, with a twisted, impossible smile stretching wide. It hissed, a sound like steam escaping a vent, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth ready to tear flesh. Instinct took over. I raised my rifle and fired. The muzzle flashed, blinding us momentarily in the confined space. When my vision cleared, the corner was empty. The creature had moved with supernatural speed, vanishing into the dark. I didn't wait to see where it went. I grabbed Daniel and dragged him towards the stairs, screaming, "Move!" We scrambled up the stairs, the sound of claws clicking on the stone floor echoing right behind our heels. We burst out into the storm, abandoning the house and running blindly into the rain-soaked night. I threw Daniel into the passenger seat and fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking so hard I dropped them. The engine roared to life, the headlights cutting a cone of light through the storm, revealing nothing but trees. We sped away, tires spinning in the mud, leaving that cursed cabin and its occupant far behind us. Daniel stared into the side mirror, watching the darkness recede, convinced the creature was still chasing us down. We didn't stop until we reached the town. The morning sun felt cold and distant, offering no real comfort. The police listened to our story with skeptical faces, writing it off as a bear attack or cabin fever. Daniel never spoke a word to them. He sat in silence, his mind still trapped in that dark basement. He sold the house a week later for a fraction of what he paid, desperate to sever all ties. He moved back to the city, but the shadows followed him. He sleeps with the lights on every night. I look at my brother now and I see a stranger, a shell of the man he used to be. He is haunted by what the creature showed him in the dark, a glimpse into a world of madness. The mountains are beautiful, but they keep their secrets well. Some places are simply not meant for us. If you ever find yourself deep in the Appalachians, stay on the path and never answer the whispers. For in the dark, there are things that are hungry, and they are always waiting for a new visitor. Thank you for watching Video Creator. Sleep well tonight and try not to listen too closely to the whispering.